Hello everyone and welcome to the installation video for the Vital Watch. So today we're going to be taking a brand new Vital bracelet here and we're going to be converting it into a Vital Watch that you see over here. This video is going to be broken down into two segments. It's going to be the teardown of the Vital bracelet itself, and then the second part is going to be the installation of the Vital Watch kit as well. So as far as required tools go, you will need a flathead screwdriver, and while technically this is the only tool that you'll really need, it does help to have a couple of other things here as well. So a Phillips head screwdriver would be nice. I'm just going to use this little Phillips head bit over here. If you got a screwdriver, awesome, just use that. And a really sharp / really thin tool such as an X-Acto knife is going to come in handy at certain points. If you just have an X-Acto knife, I would recommend just bringing it with you. And if you don't have one, technically you can get away with this, but sometimes depending on the Vital bracelet, your life will be easier if you just have one of these. So before actually we begin, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other parts as well. So you're gonna have here a Vital Watch shell and main body. There's actual glass that's already pre-installed here. Now, because these are not waterproof, I've decided that I'm actually not going to glue any of these in, and I'm going to leave that up to you guys. And the reason is because this is already pretty well fitted as is, but also if you choose to do any kind of painting or post-processing or anything like that, you can actually do this now. You can actually just pop the glass out, do any kind of sanding or painting or whatever you want to do, and then you can carry on with the rest of this video after you get that taken care of. There's also going to be a watch cover, and this one's actually customized for a specific customer, but generally speaking here, you'll have your own, like the regular unpainted Veek logo here. A couple of other things, you've got the back plate over here, you've got the DIMM cap, the USB cap, the USB adapter, 2 buttons, which we'll talk about later, an on-off switch, and 4 Phillips head screws. So, with all of that out of the way, let's start with the watch. So this watch here, there's really it's pretty simple. If you guys have seen my teardown video, it's exactly the same as what I did in that video, but let's kind of go through everything. There are these 2 screws right here that hold both of the wrist straps together. We're gonna go ahead and remove those, and they're attached with a Phillips head screw. If for whatever reason you still care about the body and the shell of this, then once you unscrew this, you do want to remove it from the top over here, like so. And this will help with any of the scratching that tends to happen over here. Now, the scratching is, for the most part, pretty cosmetic, so it doesn't really matter. You can technically just yank these out, but no harm, no foul. So once we get these things out of the way, like so, we're gonna set these aside because we're not gonna need them anymore. We're gonna now have 4 screws, 2 on each side, and they're just Phillips head screws that we're gonna go ahead and remove. So let's go ahead and get those out of the way. And I'm just gonna set all these aside. We actually don't need any of the screws from the Vital bracelet, or really any of the auxiliary parts that are not just like the motherboard and things like that. So do whatever you want with these. You can put them back in the body when you're done. You can throw them away. You can do whatever. If you do plan on keeping your Vital bracelet shell, then I would strongly recommend just screwing them back in once we've finished removing the guts. Speaking of the guts, we're gonna go ahead and take out the DIMM cap as well. So this guy here, we're just gonna go ahead and push that to the side somewhere. And we're gonna unplug the little USB adapter here just to make our lives a bit easier. And then we're gonna pry this apart. Now when you take this apart, you do wanna be careful because the screen does like to hang on to the shell. So what I mean by that is once we pry this out, oh, not this time. Sometimes, oftentimes, the screen here will actually just kind of hang loose and kind of cling on to its ribbon cables, and you just want to be careful not to yank it too hard. It's pretty resilient, but still we want to avoid that. The shell here we can do whatever you want with. You'll notice that the buttons tend to fly out, so we'll get both of these and just put them to the side. And then we've got this body right here. Now, on the top of the body, you'll notice that there are 2 more Phillips head screws. We're just going to go ahead and get rid of those real fast. These are actually a slightly different size and different shape actually compared to the 4 that we just removed. So if you are keeping these, you want to make sure that those are put separately. So let's get those out of the way. And now what we can do is from the USB side, we can butterfly this open carefully. Now you want to be careful because again, you've got the heart rate sensor and the speaker that are latched together on here. And then you've also got the little power switch, which you can actually just pop out. So this just comes out. We'll put that to the side as well. Okay, so now we have to talk about the hardest part of this whole installation, and that is going to be the speaker over here. So the way this works is that you've got, well, let me see if I can get that out of the way here. There we go. You've got this section here and here that are not soldered, that have been melted. There's like a piece of plastic here that's been melted on top of the speaker itself. And then you've got various hot glue jobs kind of all around here. You can actually see like the different coloration right at the tip of my screwdriver here. This is hot glue. And what happens here, and this is also different for every Vital bracelet. After doing over 24 of these, I've noticed that some of these are very, very glued in, and others have popped off on their own. So it's kind of just hit or miss. You're gonna have to, your mileage may vary, but you've got to be very careful to not accidentally break these two solder connections here. And they're very weak, especially this red one. The red wire here is very, very weak. What I've found to be the best practice after doing a lot of these is grabbing the edge here of this wire and just gently, and I mean very gently, lifting to see how much glue is applied. And on this one, there's a pretty good amount. You can actually see a little bit of the residue here, right? Just kind of being stuck. So I'm not going to pull any further. And realistically, I may have to do this off camera because every time I do this on camera, it breaks. But what you want to do is you want to see if you can ever so slightly just lift that up, right? And when you lift it up, you're going to take an X-Acto knife or something very thin, and then you're basically just going to try to get under there, and then you're going to pop it open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera for a second. I'm going to try to lift this just enough so I can get my X-Acto knife under it, and then I'll show you the rest of it. Okay, so I did manage to get it. And what I did here is I pulled the black and the red wire. I held both of them together, and I slowly started lifting up. And once I got it just enough, I was able to pry it with my X-Acto knife. Now here, I like to use the back of the knife, but sometimes depending on the toughness of the glue, like this is pretty tough actually. Sometimes I'll flip it over and I'll try to use the sharp side of the knife, like so. And I'm just gonna go around the perimeter, and I'm gonna slice off a decent portion. Now, again, you wanna be careful on the side where you're aiming towards your wires, because the last thing you wanna do right now is slice your wires, right? But I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna start ripping out the glue, right? And you can see here that I've ripped out a good chunk. So now about half of this perimeter is out. I can actually take, if you have a pry tool, this would be better at this point, but I'm just gonna take this knife and I'm gonna just pop it open. And at some point, you can grab it with your hand. You can actually just grab the whole speaker here and you can just lift with your hands and boom, there it is. Like so, everything is attached, and then we've still got our two connections intact. Now, it's okay if this bends a little bit, I've noticed. The speaker is fairly resilient. However, I do want to talk about the speaker a little bit more in depth. Part of the reason why the sound is as loud as it is on the Vital bracelet is because this thing here is glued into the body, and it gives it a little bit of a little more room to resonate, kind of like an echo chamber. And the way the Vital watch is set up over here, which we'll talk about again, there is no glue or adhesive holding this in. So naturally, the sound is going to be a little more quiet. If you prefer a louder Vital bracelet and you like the sound of it, you are going to have to hot glue the perimeter back into the watch during the installation. I'll remind you guys and to kind of tell you guys how to do it, but I don't own a hot glue gun, and I also don't like the louder sound personally, so I'm not going to be doing it in this video, but there's no complicated process, it's literally just hot glue. So I did want to kind of bring that up real quick before we go any further. Next up, we're going to talk about the heart rate sensor. Now the heart rate sensor is a lot easier. There are two little solder melted pieces of plastic here, right? And these are the only 2 points of contact that are holding it in together. What you can do is you can take a pry tool or a flathead screwdriver and wedge a flathead screwdriver right here. And you can just pry it in and then pop it out. Now, if you have something really sharp like a pair of pliers or clippers, I already got it. If you have a pair of like pliers or clippers or anything like that, you can actually just cut the plastic off. But usually these parts here are soldered in so much that it's probably easier just to pry it open. And as you saw here, it just pops right out. I've noticed again after working on some of these, some of them are harder than others to remove. So if yours looks like it's gonna be a little bit harder to remove, you may wanna consider just getting rid of excess plastic, again, by like some really sharp clippers or something if you have them. So now that we've got this, we've got most of our vital bracelet disassembled. We do want to go ahead and remove the battery portion from the board. So we're actually just gonna pull the battery out like so. And you just want to be careful of the wire right here. And right now, the only thing we're going to do is we're actually just going to move that off to the side. So this is going to be detached, the battery is going to be detached, and this is going to hang freely, just going to be mindful of it. And then we'll leave that off to the side. So the teardown portion is done. We've got all the important parts we need. At this point in time, you should also confirm a couple of things. You should be able to turn the device on still. And again, I've never powered this device on. I think I have it upside down. Oh, no, I don't. Okay. So the device still works, and if you check the heart rate sensor, you should see a little flash when you power it back on and off. You should also get sound, which I didn't check when moving this, so you should hear. So we have sound. And you can tell here that it's pretty quiet, and what I mean is, like, if you hold this, you'll get more sound out of it. Oh, I did not hit OK. Oops. Okay. Sorry, I was not in a menu. But if I hold this, so what you want to do again is you want to echo the sound. So it will be louder naturally when you decide to glue it. So just keep that in mind. If you want it to be louder, you are going to need some hot glue. Okay, on to the installation process. So let's get this out of the way. Let's get that out of the way. So the first things first, you're gonna have the base of the vital watch. You're gonna have the body part. From here, you're gonna go ahead and look at the screen cover that is provided with you. Now, before you go any further, most of this installation process is just a matter of being thorough and keeping clean. The best thing to do right now, before you go any further, is to turn your vital watch back on, or vital bracelet back on, look at your screen cover, and inspect it. You're gonna go ahead and place this directly on top where the screen is facing, whoops, where the screen is facing on the left-hand side, and I awkwardly hold it. And you're gonna wanna slot this in like so. You wanna look at it and inspect it to see if there's any defects or anything on the screen cover, especially for the round customers. What you'll notice here, I'm gonna take my X-Acto knife, the square ones turned out pretty good, and I try to clean these up in advance. This is a good example right here as I'm staring at it. Sometimes you'll get these little blemishes or debris that will actually show up on the screen, and if you have an X-Acto knife or something, you can come in here and then you can actually just like shave off little bits here and really just kind of clean up the edges. Again, I tried my best, but I'm not perfect, and sometimes things get missed. And these are things that'll show up on your screen when you're looking. So you wanna make sure that the edges of this panel here are as smooth and free of any kind of like 3D printed debris as possible. So once you do that, and also this sounds really obvious, but double check to make sure that there's no debris or dust or anything on your screen itself now that you've disassembled it. You want to then look at the watch. And what we're going to do is this screen portion here is going to be facing the dim slot, right? So it's going to ultimately end up like this. So we're gonna pop this in, and we are going to have this side here facing this little opening, right? And then if you look on this side, that's what it looks like. Before you go any further, you want to triple check this. So pop this out, clean the inside of the screen, clean any of the side pieces here. The last thing you want to do, and I say this from experience, a lot of experience, is you don't want to go through and assemble this entire watch only to find out that you've got 2 or 3 pieces of dust right in your screen and it drives you insane. So you have to take the whole thing apart again and then clean it and then do the whole thing over. So take a moment, grab a microfiber cloth, grab some kind of paper towel or something, double check and make sure that there's no dust that's going to bother you. I'm actually going to do that real quick off camera because I've had this happen so many times and I really don't feel like reinstalling this watch on camera 3 times in a row. Okay, so I've cleaned all the dust and debris. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna insert this, we're gonna insert the cover. There is a little gap over here by the USB port, so we're gonna actually insert that under this gap, and then it's just gonna pop in like so. And there's nothing crazy, it's just a pressure fit. It doesn't need to be exactly square, but get it as close to square as you can. There's actually a little lip here that's gonna catch whenever we install our watch body. Or not watch body, our vital bracelet. So, oh, actually I forgot this. On the back of the vital bracelet, before we begin this, before we insert this into the watch body, what you want to do is on the battery, there is this little plastic adhesive. You're going to want to pull this adhesive off. And you pull from the bottom away from this yellow piece, because the yellow piece actually has like this little sliver that likes to, yeah, like this. It likes to hang on. So when you pull it, just make sure that you don't rip off that yellow piece. And it's just like a piece of plastic. It just kind of hangs here, and you can just set that back. We don't really need this little spacer kind of foam piece anymore, so I'm just going to set that aside. You can throw it away or do whatever you want. So now the battery is going to be a little more exposed. Now, let's actually talk about what's going to happen here when we install this. So the first portion is this screen is going to lay flush inside of here. That's pretty obvious. And then that little groove that you saw is going to slot inside of the screen. Pretty self-explanatory. However, we're going to be looking at it from this angle here. So we're going to insert the screen and it's going to look like this. It's going to plop right in. The battery is going to sit right beside it. So it's going to be, actually I'm going to untangle those battery cables real quick. There we go. So the screen is going to sit here, and then the battery is going to sit directly beside it, and it's going to look something like this, right? Something like that. Now, it's worth noting, if you look at it from the side, you'll notice that there's kind of this sandwich here. You've got the screen itself, where my finger is, and then you've got the motherboard. What you want to do is when we eventually insert this, we're actually going to put the battery kind of sandwiched right in between both. So it's on top of the screen, but under the motherboard. That's going to be a key component to how we assemble this, and it's very important that we keep that in mind. So just again, note that as I talk about it, and let's go right into the installation. So we're going to grab our little DIMM slot that's probably fallen off a million times by now. We're going to go ahead and reinsert that. So it just kind of naturally slots in here like so. You kind of want to move the heart rate sensor up a little bit, just up and out. Don't need to do anything crazy. And then here we're going to go ahead and just slot I'm going to drop it down here. We're just going to slot this in like so. And then you'll actually notice a pretty good like snap, and you can hear that. One key tip that I've found when doing a lot of these installations is that when you install these, you typically want to start kind of on the left-hand side and then swivel the right-hand side in. So like this portion here is going to go in first, and be careful with this ribbon cable here. You don't want to smush this cable. You want to make sure that that cable stays intact. And then you're going to swivel this portion in to the right. So it's going to go down, and then you're going to swivel to the right. And once that's in, go ahead and, oops, my device is already on. Go ahead and power the device back on and take a look at your watch again. Look at it right now. Make sure that there are no defects or blemishes or anything that you wouldn't be happy looking at. And right now, this one's looking pretty good. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the device back off, and we're going to continue. So now we're going to go ahead and place the battery in. For the battery, as I mentioned before, we're going to sandwich it in between both of the boards. So it's going to go on top of the LCD, but below the motherboard. And oftentimes what you'll find is you'll get something like this where it's kind of going diagonally the wrong way. I like to just stick a screwdriver under in the USB slot and kind of just give it a lift. And once it's lifted, you should be able to comfortably slide it in like so. So in here, it's placed, and you'll notice that it's kind of at a diagonal angle, like this little, you can kind of see the metallic film. This diagonal is what you want. You want to make sure that first off, when staring directly at the vital bracelet right here, this section, whoops, sorry, my camera's on the other side. This section right here, that little circular plastic bit is the spacer for the screen. That's actually the part of the screen that connects to the board, like physically. It's like a mount. It's like a mounting hole. You want to make sure that this is inside that little bracket, so it's properly mounted and squared and flush, and it's not going to move. And then after that, again, you want to make sure that the whole battery is under this motherboard like so. And again, it will sit at a bit of a diagonal, totally fine. A couple of other stuff. On the buttonholes over here, sorry, let me get my hand out of the way. On the buttonholes, and the USB slot, you just want to make sure that they're not sitting, like the little plastic shield that I have here is not sitting inside of the buttonholes. In this case, it's totally fine. But sometimes like the plastic right here, and sorry, I know it's like black on black, but sometimes the plastic likes to sit inside the buttonholes, and I just like to tamper it down like so it's not getting in the way of anything. You'll know it's basically, if you see a piece of plastic that's sticking inside the buttonhole, just prop it down with a screwdriver is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's the main part done, and arguably the scariest part. So now we're gonna take this USB-C adapter here, and it's micro USB on the front side. What we wanna do is the little prongs are gonna be facing upwards, and you're just gonna go ahead and insert that into your charging port. Now, sometimes, again, every 3D print's a little different. You can't plug it in exactly like this because there's just no room. And what you have to do is you have to gently lift up the board ever so slightly. So here I lifted it a tiny bit, and then you can insert the you can insert the what is this, charging adapter thing, and then you can pop it back in. Now this is what I'm talking about with the mounting bracket. Over here you can see that the little plastic bit is not in all the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna press down, angle it a little bit here, and then try to get that to fit back in. And you don't want to be too rough, but now you heard the snap, but you can also see back over here that plastic is now reseated inside of the PCB, and that's what you want. So don't worry if like the USB isn't properly mounted all the way like this. Like right here, you can see it's off a little bit and we need to push it down a little bit. That's gonna be handled when we install the back plate, so don't worry. The next step, the buttons. So the buttons they look really simple, but there's some small nuances. So first off, you can see here that this button is angled, right? There's a kind of like a downward slope going this way. That's important. You want that slope side facing up toward you, and you want the flat side down here facing on the little black plastic bit. There's also this little angled cutoff here. And the angled cutoff is specifically for this side of the board by the power switch. You can see here, there's this tiny little angled piece. It's like a 90-degree angle. See if I can show it on camera. Right here. And it gets in the way of your button presses. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a button and we're gonna keep that angled side where that 90-degree corner is. And then we're just gonna place the button inside. And you're gonna put it in the hole first. You're gonna push forward, and that's it. And then just make sure that the angled portion is facing upward and out, right? So again, looking at this one, this button on the other side doesn't really matter as much. Just make sure that, again, you get the flat side is the other way, so we wanna go this way, right? That is just gonna go up here, and it's just gonna slot in. And at this point, you wanna check your buttons, and you wanna make sure that if you hold down the board, because obviously we haven't screwed anything in yet, if you hold down the board and you click, like that one doesn't make a good sound. This one makes a great sound. So in the event that something like this happens, the problem is actually the holes themselves. Again, I tried to do my best, but every 3D printed object is not exactly the same, and there are always some slight tolerance differences and inconsistencies. So what we have to do is we have to remove this button. And this is where, again, it's not entirely optional, but it's potentially useful and necessary. We're gonna want an X-Acto knife for this. So what you're gonna do is get that button out of the way. you're going to want to take an X-Acto knife, and you are basically just going to want to slightly trim the outer perimeter, and you're basically just going to do like 1 or 2 carved holes inside, and you just want to get rid of any debris. And you'll notice on most of these watches, if you have to perform this step, you'll see here, sorry, I'm off camera again. You'll see here that I've done this once or twice for every single watch. But again, I can't account for every inconsistency with every watch because I don't know which combination of buttons you're gonna get, and I can't test every button and every watch together because I have to install the thing to find out if it fits. So we went ahead and we just ran a quick circle around the thing. We're gonna go ahead and pop this button back in, and there's the click. And we gotta click on both sides. And again, when you're testing it, you wanna make sure that you're pressing down against the board because that's how it's gonna sit in the Vital watch. So 2 good clicks, ready to move on. So the next step is gonna be the installation of the back plate. For this part, you're gonna wanna take your little on-off switch, and you're gonna go ahead and plop it inside here. I don't think there's really much to say about that. You just stick it on top like so. You're then going to take your heart rate sensor, and we're gonna look at this back plate here. This back plate has a couple of key things going on. It's got a hole for the speaker, a hole for the heart rate sensor. The heart rate sensor section also has these 2 little pins where the heart rate sensor is. I've noticed actually some of these are inconsistent from board to board. If both of these aren't fitting inside of your particular heart rate sensor, go ahead and just snip one of them off. Actually, I think I snipped one off on this one here too. Totally fine, it's just to make your life a bit easier, but just keep that in mind, not all of these are perfect. And then of course you got the on-off switch. What you're gonna wanna do, and this part is gonna take a little bit of time for some people, don't be afraid to spend a couple moments doing this. I may actually have to do this off camera as well, but what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna place the speaker inside of the hole, like so. And if you want to get any of the wires out of the way, you absolutely can. I like to kind of twist the wires off to the side like that, so it kind of does this like this like kind of circular roundabout kind of path. But some people, if you prefer just having the wires out, if you want to glue them somewhere, if you want to twist them, you can do whatever you want to do. Just make sure that the wires are out of the way. You're then going to want to take the heart rate sensor, and then you're going to want to fit it inside. Let's see if I can show you. You're gonna want to fit it inside of here, and then you're going to sandwich the thing down, making sure that everything stays in place. The speaker is going to move a little bit. That's totally fine. As long as the heart rate sensor doesn't fall out and the speaker kind of plops back in, you're okay. The power button, sometimes you need to give it a little bit of a nudge. And again, I may have to go off camera for this part. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you should see that the power button is in place, the heart rate sensor stays where it is, and the speaker stays where it is. So good, good, and good. From here, you just want to hold the buttons together real quick by pressure. Just verify that they're clicking, and then we're just going to screw everything in. So you're going to take the 4 screws provided, and you're just going to go ahead and give those guys. There we go. And we're just going to go ahead and screw them in. One thing to note about the screws is that you're screwing in plastic with plastic, right? The only thing to be mindful of is that you don't apply so much pressure that you warp the plastic. So once it starts to feel pretty tight, you're good. You can make it reasonably tight, but don't overdo it. And it feels pretty obvious when the thing is already done and it's set in. But don't feel like you have to over tighten something because you will damage the shell and you will warp the plastic. So once it tightens up, you're good to go. And we're just gonna go ahead and set this one. You do also, because these are not pre-threaded, you do wanna make sure that you're reasonably straight on, and there is a self-correcting aspect to it, but just make sure that you're not going 45 degrees and screwing off on an angle or something crazy when you're doing this. Just make sure that, like, even this one, it's not perfectly straight, but it's close enough. Again, the back plate will self-correct itself before we go in, so we should go ahead and do that. Awesome. And now you can see here that this is flush, this is in, that is flush. So check the buttons again. Still clicking. Go ahead and insert your dim cap. And this one, there we go. So the dim cap is in. Go ahead and insert your USB cap. USB cap is in. Power the device on. Oh, it's already on. Repower the device. Oh no. Okay. So this is good. I'm gonna have to re-record this part, but you can see here that there is a wire sticking out that's preventing us from going into our on and off switch. So we actually need to bring that wire down. I'm gonna cut the video and show you guys in person and then reassemble the thing. Okay, so in here, this wire was getting in my way of moving the on off switch. So what I'm gonna do is you actually just want to you can actually take your thumb and then just move these off to the side somewhere. And these wires, they can take a little bit of bending, so it's not the end of the world, but you don't want to put too much strain on these because they can eventually fall out. But you just want to make sure that they're dropped down, make sure that the wires themselves aren't looping on or very close to the power switch, because then again, your switch won't work. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on, make sure that this thing can move, and then we're going to go ahead and reinstall this back plate one more time. Okay, so back in, you can see that the red wire is very clearly out of the way. You can barely see it now. So when I pull the switch, the thing glows green. I get the little Digimon thing going on, digital monster, and it looks like we're good. This is a part where, check for sound. Check your heart rate sensor. I'm not gonna check the heart rate sensor on this one because A, I know it works because I saw it glow, and B, I have to go through the whole process and I don't really want to do that during the video. But calibrate your heart rate sensor, make sure that works, make sure the charger works, make sure your buttons are clicky, and you're good to go. So that's it. That was the installation process from start to finish. As you can see, for the most part, it's pretty simple. The only thing that you gotta be careful with is gonna be that speaker. And again, this is a huge help. If you have an X-Acto knife, you should totally get one for this project, just in case. For, I would say, 80% of the conversion kits I've worked with, I've made sure that I've, pre-slotted and pre-cut most of the parts here, but I'm not perfect. And again, some inconsistencies will naturally just show up. So I hope you guys can understand that. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything, feel free to leave it in the video. Give good questions thumbs ups because I will be answering them to the best of my ability, and it'll kind of serve as like a community guide / FAQ for everyone here. So thank you all so very much for watching. It's been very fun. I hope to see you guys pick up the Vital Watch and check out Wave 2 when that eventually hits. Again, just keep up to date with me on social media, Twitter, all that good stuff. That's all, guys. Peace.